Welcome back, fantasy managers. This is Devo 1099 with fantasy football backers. A little under the weather, so you'll have to excuse my voice. A little gravelly here today, but we've got a great midweek slate. We're still outside of a Champions League in Europa, so we're playing some midweek slate following the transfer deadline day today. Should be a pretty good set of games on Tuesday. There's 8 of them. Most of the top teams are involved, which includes Leicester still. I'm not entirely sure when Leicester is going to go away. It seems like at this point they've got a better chance of making the top 4 than they do not making the top 4. So definitely time to take them seriously. An interesting matchup they have as well. But let's get right to it here. Deadline day was pretty quiet overall. A couple teams, Newcastle, West Ham, teams like that, trying to just kind of try to stay up more than anything. West Ham's fine, obviously, but Newcastle went and got Doumbia from Roma by way of CSKA Moscow. So that's a pretty good pickup for them. Mitrovic was starting to come around a little bit, but I think Doumbia is probably a better player and more of a pure striker that can actually score. So rather than a target man. So Doumbia is definitely going to be an interesting pickup for us, and we'll see how the sites come in with pricing on that. But let's start with what should be an interesting match, the reverse fixture from Boxing Day when Southampton beat Arsenal 4-0. Now we're going to the Emirates. Arsenal have been struggling a bit to stay near the top. They've been battling injuries. Chelsea is clearly in their head, Diego Costa in particular. So not a whole lot to learn from that match. El Neni did look good in the FA Cup, as did Iwobi. We'll see if either of them can supplant the great Flamini. But for our purposes, I don't love this game. Arsenal and Southampton are both comfortable playing defensively if they need to. Arsenal should have Alexis back. He played about 75 minutes in the FA Cup against Burnley. And certainly is someone to keep an eye on. I don't know at 10.9 million on Mondogoal if this is the time to play him against Southampton. Southampton's had the best defense over the past 4 matches. They've only allowed 2 big chances. Arsenal's allowed 4 big chances, but partially due to the being down to 9 men against Chelsea, they've given up a good number of shots. Not the most efficient shots, so still not particularly worried about the Arsenal defense. And I think Cech actually could end up being sort of a differential at 9.3 million. He's a little expensive, and Southampton is scary enough. Charlie Austin is there now, 8.6 million on Mondogoal. Has a good chance to score here, I guess. If anybody is going to score and he gets to start, I'm not going to play him. I'm probably not really going to touch this match at all. When you look at, the way that pricing works and you look at where Southampton would fall on an opponent's list for Arsenal, at home, it's probably a little bit better, but they're only, I think I saw them at 5-4 to win, somewhere in there, maybe 6-5 to win, something like that. Not particularly strong considering they're at home. So maybe the bookies liked what Southampton did on Boxing Day, but between Arsenal pricing, Southampton's defense, and the bookies, I just don't see a lot of value here. If I knew Alexis was going to play 90 minutes, he would be a lot more interesting to me, but I don't know that, and that is enough to steer me away. And like I said, there's 8 matches here. There's a couple better matchups, so probably leaving Arsenal Southampton alone, which leads me to the next match, which I'm not sure is a whole lot better. Leicester hosting Liverpool. Leicester's obviously been a surprise. They're as strong and efficient as their attack was earlier in the season. It's been their defense that has been carrying them and keeping them afloat. They're top of the league now. So they get Liverpool at home. This is another match where the bookies still don't totally love Leicester. I think they're a little bit confounded by the statistics that they've had. They don't necessarily project to be a top team, but they are doing it. Vardy 8.9 million is interesting. Mahrez 11.6 million. Firmino on the other side at 7.3 million, who's on a nice little hot streak, and Milner at 8.6 million. Realistically, I'm probably going to leave this game alone as well. I do think there is probably a little bit of value in Vardy, with Mignolet not being a particularly good keeper, and Liverpool has some holes in the center of their defense. So I think, if anything, I would take a chance on Vardy in this match. Firmino would be a total flyer, and you'd be sort of betting against Leicester's recent form. But I wouldn't hate that completely if there weren't such better options later. One of those options comes in our next game in Vicarage Road. Norwich hosting Tottenham. Spurs have frankly been one of the best teams in the league. I am an Arsenal fan, so it's not something I say lightly. But the Spurs attack and the Spurs defense have both been near the top recently, and they've got a lot of talent. So losing Vertonghen, I think, will hurt. Spurs still do give up goals here and there. I don't know where they will come from on Norwich, but I think replacing Vertonghen with Wimmer is sort of the rumor right now, and I think that is likely to happen. Wimmer has some experience in the Bundesliga, but he was brought in purely as cover, and he's not Vertonghen. So Kane is 13 million, which is a little bit pricey for a striker, but you have to like his chances to score. I think he's about 55-60% to score. Eriksen has been playing very well again. He and Lamela have sort of been going yin and yang. When Lamela plays well, Eriksen tends to not play that well, and vice versa. Lamela down to 7.1 million. Could be a value, but like I said, the trend is certainly showing that Eriksen is taking over again, and then Dele Alli is 9.8 million. Somebody to keep an eye on to see if he can handle a full Premier League season. The matches like this where he has a match on Tuesday, and then again, I believe they play Saturday, or at least this weekend. That's tough on a young kid who doesn't have seasons like this under his belt. But so far so good. He's looked amazing. That goal he scored last week was really tremendous. Wimmer, as I mentioned, 7 million. If you think that Norwich will struggle to score, it's not a bad decision. Two new defenders for Norwich, Klose and Ivo Pinto. Klose is 7.7 million. Pinto is 6.2 million. Pinto was, you may remember him from Dynamo Zagreb, the team that beat Arsenal in Croatia in Champions League. Pinto is a crosser and a decent option at 6.2 million. He's more attractive on DraftKings if you're on there. He's the bare minimum at 2,000 there. Redmond's still the best attacker for Norwich. Whether he actually plays is another question altogether. I don't really see 6.6 million is affordable. I just don't see using players against Tottenham right now until we see if they are really that affected by the loss of Vertonghen. But Lloris at 7.6 million also, I think, is an interesting play. I think Norwich will probably get some shots off, but I don't know how effective they'll be. And so he could get some cheap saves. Certainly has a shot at a clean sheet in this match. And then one last guy I wanted to mention, Danny Rose, 8.2 million, is a little bit off of where he's been. He's typically been around 9 million. But this would seem to be a match that could do very well for him. So I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money on my defense this week, but Rose is someone to keep an eye on. So Sunderland, still pretty terrible. Now hosting Manchester City, who's supposed to be the best team in the league, still could easily win the league, but now don't have Kevin De Bruyne. Sunderland have only given up 4 big chances in the past 4 weeks. They've actually looked like a lower mid-table team versus the bottom 2 type team that they've been most of the season. So, are they going to shut down Manchester City? I doubt it. City are still favored to score the most goals this week. I would peg them to score the most goals this week. But if you're coming to the decision of paying up for Aguero at 14.8 million, it's really going to depend on where else you are looking to spend your money. I think it's probably still doable on Mondogoal. I made a quick team and could essentially get everybody I wanted. Including I think I have Kane and Aguero on that. So, Silva is going to be taking over part of De Bruyne's role and also obviously what he's been doing. He's 10.4 million. I think he'll be very popular. There's a chance that Navas will get the start on the right. Iheanacho had a hat trick at the weekend, so you have to look at him if he does get a chance to start. I can't imagine they would start him over Sterling, but they certainly could with 2 games this week. So you could see Navas and Iheanacho. You could see Iheanacho and Sterling. But you got to assume Silva will be playing the 10 and right behind Aguero there. Bonnie's still out. Yaya Toure might be asked to shoulder a bit more of the load, as my colleague Martin mentioned in his column. So that's probably more of a differential, but he can do a pretty decent job on Mondogoal scoring. So that's one to keep an eye on. Joe Hart at 7.5 million is probably a bit of a risk. And at the same time as Sunderland, and you wouldn't be surprised at all if they kept a clean sheet. But Sunderland has been scoring goals. That hasn't been their problem lately since Big Sam took over. So I think there's better keepers to take, and we'll get to him at the same price here in the next match is West Ham and Adrian at 7.5 million as well, hosting Villa. Until Villa can demonstrate that they can score, I think it's perfectly reasonable to continue to bet against them. And while I've been a vocal detractor of West Ham's most of this season, and I'm still not entirely sure how good they are, this is a good matchup. Home against Villa is the best matchup you're going to have. So Adrian looks just fine to me here. Cresswell comes in at 7.9 million. Payet 11.8 million is probably going to be a very highly owned player. Antonio at 9.4 million. It's probably a little bit pricey when you're not sure if he's going to go 90. And Valencia has been hot lately, is 7.1 million. Victor Moses, if he plays, is 5.9 million. They bought a couple players that they'll probably want to use sooner than later, but maybe not this week. One of those is Sam Byram, who may be forced into duty. He came on for Jenkinson last match. Gets forward quite a bit. I think he scored a few goals for Leeds in this season. And checks in at 6.4 million, which to pair with Adrian is a good option. So I think Byram, assuming you see him starting, is probably one of the more no-brainer plays on Mondogoal. For Villa, If we're that high on West Ham, we can't be particularly high on Villa. One player to keep an eye on is Bakuna, 6.1 million. He kind of took Verito's spot last match. I would think Verito will probably win it back. I don't know if they'll move Bakuna to right back again, but he had kind of played a right mid and was taking set pieces and some corners. So at defender, particularly on somewhere like DraftKings, where you can get points for corners and free kicks, he would be a player that you almost have to have. He's 3,400 on DraftKings, but again, you're gonna have to look for Verito. If Verito's in there, then that takes away a lot of Bakuna's responsibilities, and probably, considering a clean sheet is highly unlikely against West Ham. Probably not worth a punt there unless Verito is out. Palace hosting Bournemouth. This is an interesting match. Palace is going distinctly the wrong direction right now. Cabaye is a doubt. Last I've heard is I think he's probably going to test his ankle. If they don't have him, that sets him back even further because Balassi is already out. You've got Zaha and Punchin. 6.7 for Zaha, 6.8 for Punchin. They're still down a striker. I don't know if Adebayor will be able to go in this one or not. We can't have him because the contests were created before he was brought in. But he, as tough as his past couple seasons have been, he's not going to have a ton of competition for Palace at striker. So Adebayor should have some chances. He's got some midfielders that are going to be more than happy to cross the ball into him and give him some chances. And I think that despite the fact that I am not an Adebayor fan, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to use him in daily fantasy on both Mondogoal and DraftKings, and we'll keep an eye on that. It'll be matchup dependent, and we'll see, what kind of match shape he is in, if he's got the fitness to be playing more than an hour or so. We'll find out, but someone to keep an eye on for sure. For Bournemouth, they're going to create some chances. Stanislas is out, which should put Mark Pugh out on the left. Richie is back on the right. Afobe, I believe, is going to be able to play. He's looked good in his couple games. He already has 2 goals in 3 appearances. Daniels is getting a bit expensive at 9.4 and on the road, so I'm probably not going to touch him. But he is on penalty duty, though Palace is not too undisciplined, so I don't know if that'll come in. 2 more games to go. We've got the Mercurial Manchester United at Old Trafford hosting Stoke. So Stoke has been fairly decent, and the bookies are not giving them much of a chance here. When you look at United and Stoke, it doesn't sound like there will be many goals, and I think that's probably the easiest way to handle this match. And Rooney at 8.4 million, and his form is actually pretty interesting. Martial at 5.8 million, and his form is also interesting. It's just whether you trust Manchester United to actually drum up much of an attack. And Stoke has actually shortened up their defense quite a bit. They're probably more middle table now, maybe even a little bit better than that. Whereas they were really struggling early in the season. So I'm probably not going to take many players from this match. De Gea is interesting at 7.8 million. I think that he and Adrian, depending on what site you're playing on Mondogoal, De Gea may be a better play than Adrian, just because I don't know how much Stoke is going to be able to muster without a striker against a well-organized defense like Manchester United. So, this just seems like a game United has to win. It might be 1-0 and it might not be pretty, but I do think that they're going to be able to drum that up. There's nobody on the Stoke side that is interesting to me. Butland at 8.3 million. His price has come back to earth a bit, but I just don't know if this is a good spot for him. And there's cheaper keepers in better situations. So one thing to note is Blind is 7.3 million on Mondogoal. He's also 4,000 on DraftKings, but on Mondogoal he remains a midfielder. On DraftKings they've finally moved him to defender. I don't like him quite as much as a center back. If he were out on the left and taking corners as he has been, he would be a really nice option on DraftKings at 4,000 and be able to use a defender spot for him, but probably leaving that alone here. The last match of the Tuesday slate is going to be at the Hawthorns. West Brom hosting Swansea. Swansea has definitely come around a bit of late. West Brom still, lacking a striker despite turning down £24 million offers for one that they have on their bench. Will they play Berahino after his performance in FA Cup? I don't know. I'm not convinced they will. There's some bizarre bitterness going on there. I don't know if they're just going to be able to bury the hatchet after all that's gone on and then all of a sudden start him. Not to mention, I don't know how match fit he is. So if Berahino starts at 5.1 million on Mondogoal, you have to look at him. I don't know if that's where you should be ending up, but as a differential, I suppose he would be one you could chance. McLean is starting to slowly climb on Mondogoal. He's up to 5 million. As he gets a little further away from that red card, his price will go up. I do think that just by the sheer volume of crosses and chances created that he has going for him, he's a really nice option at 5 million. Dawson is 8.2 million defense. He's been really good lately, so I would consider him. Myhill should get the start at 5.4 million. I strongly prefer Foster, but he's hurt. So on the Swansea side, Sigurdsson at 10.6 million is still in play, just because West Brom is happy to concede possession. And then Fabianski is 5.6 million. If you're looking for the cheapest option of someone who could potentially keep a clean sheet, I think Fabianski is probably going to fit that bill, and he should be low owned, partly low owned because Swansea's defense has been pretty shaky most of the season. So, but with a new Italian in tow, I think that Guidolin is probably going to instill a little bit more of a sound defense there, and I think that getting Fabianski at 5.6 million is definitely a really strong consideration for GPPs. So, quick to review, where I'm kind of leaning. I'll go through. Actually, I made a scratch team, which I don't particularly love, but just to kind of go through the mindset of it. Starting at striker, I put in Kane and Aguero and enter Valencia. Valencia, certainly has a low floor, but as I mentioned, West Ham and Villa, Villa at home is going to be the best match that they're going to see all year, and with Valencia playing well, he was a reasonable price. So I went with 3 strikers. I have Payet backing up Valencia. I have Eriksen backing up Kane. I have Navas backing up Aguero, and then I have Pugh as my 4th midfielder. For the defense, I tried to spend as little money as possible. while still having a shot at a clean sheet. So I have Varela and Borthwick Jackson from Manchester United. I think they're probably going to be forced to start. I don't know for sure, but we'll have lineups in advance, and they're inexpensive enough with a pretty decent shot at a clean sheet, and they've looked fine when they've played so far this season, despite their inexperience. And then I do have Wimmer at $7 million. I haven't really hammered around too far with defenders, but I think he'll be a fine play. And like I said, I'm just trying not to spend much money and have shot at a clean sheet. And then I do have Adrian at $7.5 million as my keeper. So that was kind of the team I just threw together quickly to give you an idea of what you can fit in. Glancing at it, I already regret not having Silva at $10.4 million. I think he's a great play. There might be something at in Palace, particularly if Kabai is out, then Punchin becomes a bit more of an option at $6.8 million. He's actually cheaper than Pew. So, Pew, maybe I got to toss him. So, anyhow, that's just a sample of kind of the process that I'm going through. As you know, I can't play on Mondogoal right now, so not quite as grinding on that team as I am on my DraftKings team. So, it should be fun tomorrow. Tuesday's going to be a good slate with 8 full games, all with lineups at the same time. This is about as good as it gets. And then when you play against us Americans, there's no risk of the West Coast managers not being able to wake up in time. So I think you'll see that there's a lot more players tomorrow, and we'll get prepped for the Champions League coming back in a few weeks. That are always at night in the UK, in the afternoon in the US. That's always going to be the best time for all time zones involved. So that's the end of this Fantasy Football Backers preview show. We will try to get somebody to join me on later on this week before game week 25. And until then, best of luck, and contact us on Twitter if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Fantasy Football Backers signing off.